All right, fellas, we are live.
Welcome to Saturday Night Sweat. If you are new here, we are a Circa Survivor podcast. We're going to talk a little strategy, Circa Survivor. We're going to react live to the entry counts that were just released. And it's a fascinating week to talk about entry counts because coming into this week, we saw some projections with the Rams in the high 30s, in the low 40s, in the low 50s. Oh, where did the Rams end up? 64.6% of the field is on the Rams, guys, and 97% of the field is on the top three teams. So tomorrow is going to be absolutely fascinating in Circa Survivor. I'm here with producer Nick, Mike Buckmiller, and David Baker. We're here to talk about it all. We'll probably talk a little Grandissimo as well. Mike, I want to start with you. What was your first reaction when you saw these numbers and that Rams number so high?
Yeah, I mean, 64.6, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's crazy. But, this is who's left in the contest. Most of these people took the Colts last week as well. And it's kind of turning into a chalk pull for sure. Rams have a few spots moving forward, but nothing great. So they emptied the clip here for sure.
David, what was your first reaction, man?
Yeah, very similar. Obviously, where we are, I mean, there's multiple things that we're going to talk about during this show, but one of which is just the NFL now. I mean, we have so many, every week there's a 14-point spread. And look, there's a big difference between a 7 and a 10-point spread and a 14-point spread in win odds. So I think that just kind of contributes to it. Plus, it doesn't hurt the fact that the other 13-point spread was only available in 30% of the entries. So I think that helped with the concentration. Plus, we also have the Chargers went to the Giants and lost. So kind of a West Coast team traveling East Coast, and people are extrapolating that, even though they're not remotely the same situation. But it was a similar spread, around a touchdown. This one's a little north of it. That one's a little south of it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit surprised that the Rams number broke 60%, but I'm not surprised it broke 50. I did think the Packers would come in a little bit higher, though. So a little bad read there. But, yeah, we'll talk about, all that stuff as we go. Great show tonight. We've got a lot of great guests. So if you're joining us, don't just tune out after us. We've got some really smart, good people coming up. So this should be a good show.
Absolutely. And a few other things that we learned. 1% of the field got through with the Ravens on Thursday. There were 0 no picks this week. And by the way, there's 2 entries left in Circa Survivor that have 2 people that have 10 entries left. One went all in, all 10 with the Rams. One went all in, all 10 with the Chargers. Then one person had 9 left. They went 7 Rams, 2 Chargers. So it's going to be fascinating to see how those folks end up tomorrow. Mike, talk to us a little bit about where you and your partner Russ ended for this week. Where'd you land and how'd you get there?
Yeah, this was kind of figured out in week 6, believe it or not. So in week 6, there was a pivot point. You were either going to go Rams or you were going to go Packers, and everybody chose to go the Packers. I believe in week 6, the Packers were 54% owned, and we were on the Rams. And in this week, obviously, it flip-flopped. So here we are with the Packers. So give me the Packers, 13.5 points with only 30% of the pool available to take them. Obviously, only 12.8% did. So we shoved there. We do have 1 on the Chargers, but we're all in with the Packers here. So we zigged when everybody zagged. So we gave ourselves 2 opportunities to chop 54 and now 64% of the pool.
Gotcha. Good stuff. And David, how about you? Where'd you end up?
Yeah, good job there by you, Mike. I'll say that we ended up all on Rams and 1 Chargers. Kind of had the similar point in week 6. It just happens to be that the entries that got the Rams through happened to get eliminated in future weeks. We could have been in a similar situation as Mike, but just happened to be that our entries that used the pack mostly, I guess, got through, and our ones that used the Rams didn't. So we had 1 entry that we could have chosen either, and we chose the Rams because we wanted Mainly just because I wanted to have the pack we just wanted to have the pack available. I thought the pack would come in at like 20%. And if the pack came in at like 18 to 20%, that would only mean that like 10 to 12% had the pack available in future weeks. It wasn't so much about this week because I don't really think anybody's losing. It was more just setting up to have that ticket later. Actually, I think that we also had another one where we had a choice between the Chargers and the Rams, and we chose the Chargers. So anyway, we have Chargers in 1, Rams in 2, but we had chance to use the pack. We just really just decided that the pack would be more valuable to us later. If the Rams would have come in at like 50% like we thought, that means that like 30% of people could have had the Rams left. And if 20% took the Packers, even though you have that immediate leverage this week, I thought that the leverage in later weeks was more important because I just don't anticipate either of them losing. So I'm not really worried about garnering leverage this week. Obviously, anything can happen. It's the NFL. But
yeah,
I was more worried about harnessing that leverage for future weeks. I think an interesting thing that we can discuss is the Ravens on Thursday night. We had the Ravens available and considered it. But I honestly think if you gave me a chance right now to have the Rams in my entries right now today, or to have the Ravens and already be through, I would take the Rams. I just think that there's just such a little chance that the Rams lose, and having the Ravens available is just worth so much more to me because of all the spots they have. Not only the Thanksgiving Day, but there are multiple other spots where you can deploy them. And if they end up looking like they're going to be super chalk on Thanksgiving, then just you don't have to play them. But there's a week right before that, and then also at the end of the season, there's plenty of weeks. They're going to have to win to make the playoffs. So I think you can. I really wanted that ticket. So. It's good for the people who made it through, but I think long term they're going to wish that they didn't. But obviously, anything can happen if there's a major upset this week. They'll be thrilled, obviously.
Mike, you used the. Oh, go ahead,
David. To your point, we also held a Packers back, and we also held a Rams back that we didn't spend. So if we can get all those through, those are two really credible teams down the stretch that not a lot of people can play those cards. And so by not shoving all in with the pack here, holding one back, and not deploying the Rams when we had an opportunity here just to burn it, is two big cards for us to play if we happen to be down the road and find ourselves there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a much better ticket for you now with the Rams today than an hour ago I might have thought, because if the Rams come in at sub 50, like a lot of people predicted, or just north of 50, what I thought, then like 30% of the pool would still have them available. But now we're looking at 15% of the pool, even if everybody wins this week. And, there's a couple other spots. So yeah, you're going to be able to deploy them at sub 5% in the future. And that's a mighty great ticket to have.
Mike used the term pivot point earlier. I felt like this week was kind of a pivot point that was sort of attached to week 13, because week 13, you've got the Rams and Chargers once again, two of the biggest favorites on the board, arguably the two most likely teams to win that week. So I think a lot of people were thinking, if I go Rams this week, I'm going to go Chargers week 13. If I go Chargers this week, I'm going to go Rams week 13. Mike, I'll start with you. How much or how little did week 13 and Charger Rams scenarios play into your decision for this week, if at all?
Yeah, it definitely plays. We know that week 13 is also a choke point. So we will have the Rams available if that ticket gets through at Carolina. There's also Jacksonville versus the Titans. And so again, I want to take better teams when the public doesn't take them. And again, they might be, the Chargers will be the chalk. The future value on that is probably about 35% is where the public's going to be on that week. And we'll be able to have a good team at low ownership. And so all we're trying to do is find good spots and hope some of these upsets come through so that we can, get rid of some of these people that are in here. I mean, there's 2,000 people left. We're not close. I mean, I know we started with 18,718, but in order to get to where we want to be, which is ultimately, the last one remaining, we're gonna have to get some upsets here. We're gonna have to get lucky.
David, I've got a different question for you if you don't mind. I'm going to tell you how I landed where I landed this week and give me some feedback, give me some critique on my thought process here. So I went heavy on the Rams this week because I knew when the selection count came out, it was going to hurt. I didn't think it was going to be in the 60s, but I knew it was going to be very, very high on the Rams. But my thinking was when I look at the Rams this week and I look at the Rams week 13, and I look at the Chargers this week, and I look at the Chargers week 13. When I look at those 4 games, in my opinion, the most likely to lose, the scariest game is Rams at Carolina week 13. So I said, I'm going to make my decision, even though my EV is going to suck this week. I'm going to make my decision and hope that that's a landmine later that other people step on, and I'm going to avoid it because out of those 4 games, that's the one that scares me the most. What's your feedback for me there?
Well, the feedback there is the fact that the Rams are, even if they lose at Carolina, it's not going to do much damage in the pool because it's going to be less than 10% or even going to have that available. So you're not really going to gain much if they lose there. But
I'll be alive, right?
Yeah, you'll be alive.
But so will everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, my major thought on that was not necessarily week 13, was more just looking at the fact that all 3 of these teams, Chargers, Packers, and Rams, have future value. Whether we know exactly where we're going to deploy them or not, we know that these are 3 teams that are most likely going to make the playoffs. They're most likely going to be 9 to 12 win teams. So even if you have to deploy them like different weeks as 4, 5, 6 point favorites, it's nice to have them in your back pocket. But yes, obviously the choke point for the Chargers is week 13, but now that they're so low owned this week, I'll probably be looking at different spots to deploy them. And I also week 10 next week is very important. I mean, we've talked about it every single episode that if you don't have Denver or Buffalo, it's nice. You need to have some other teams in your pocket. So the Chargers play at home versus the Steelers. Let's see how the Steelers come out this week. Maybe Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Maybe they just get their doors blown off and we don't really think anything about this team. Maybe the Chargers look better. Like this, that's a definite possible spot for a lot of people to deploy the Chargers. It just more came down to me. I mean, I think that's an obvious point, but like Mike said, that's exactly what happened week 6, and now we're in the situation week 8, and everybody's kind of thinking about things the same, and that's kind of like we've talked about. This contest is moving as one organism through the NFL schedule, and the way that Mike thinks about the game, which I think is the correct way to think about it, is, look, yes, I know the Chalk's going to win most of these weeks, but if everybody keeps picking the 50% favorite, it's not a favorite to win 17 straight weeks. So, if he just keeps being on the opposite of these, one of these things is going to bite, everybody in the butt, and he's going to be sitting pretty. The problem is his entries are getting clipped one by one in the meantime while he's trying to find that spot.
That's right.
It's kind of like we're all doing. I mean, I'm not saying that I've had most of my entries clipped as well. So that's not a knock on Mike. It's just kind of like when you choose one path, like the other path happens too. He's great and he's a genius if the 64%, comes through this week or last week or the week before. But on the flip side, people are like, oh no, Mike, you're an idiot. Like, why didn't you take this free space while you're getting one entry clipped on the Bengals and another entry clipped on this other team and, whatnot. So it's kind of the life we've chosen as Survivor players. You look like an idiot one way or the other. It just depends on what the outcomes are.
Or a genius.
Before we get to our next guest, guys, I don't usually jump ahead and ask about games that are happening the next week, but because there's a very important Thursday game before we have our next show, I do want to briefly ask you guys about that Thursday night matchup, Broncos-Raiders. The Raiders aren't going to be off a bye, but they're going to be 2 weeks off of a bye, theoretically a little bit more rested. Broncos lose Patrick Surtain, NFL Defensive Player of the Year, big loss for them. Does that shake, 2 questions, does that shake your confidence at all in the Broncos on Thursday? And Survivor aside, what selections you have aside, would you rather have the Broncos or Bills for next week? Start with you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather The Broncos are going to, 30% of the pool have the Broncos available.
That's
so
right, yep.
even though they're probably, probably going to be the highest win rate in terms of percentage, yeah, I mean, we'll have some Broncos if we get through, but we also have some Bills stashed too. And so it's just going to depend on the ownership of the pool moving forward. And this week is huge, so
Yeah.
if for some reason, the Rams go down, that ownership's going to change a lot. But as of today, only 30% of the pool can take the Broncos. And so that's going to be a spot for a big percentage. And then, I think Buffalo isn't heavily owned either. So I think we have several tickets that have them both.
Mm-hmm.
And we might have 2 spots next week to cozy up to.
I have a ticket that has them both, which is why I'm asking. I'm having you help me make my decision. David, your thoughts on Bills versus Broncos?
Yeah, I would definitely rather have the Broncos left just because, they're at home. Now that can change if the Raiders come out and they've found some sort of momentum this week and, Geno comes out looking better and Brock's healthy. And also, Houston has there's a lot to be said based on what happens this week. The Broncos play a very physical, tough defense in Houston and then have to come back and play a short week. And the Bills, play the best team in the NFL, the Chiefs, and they're going to put a lot of emotion in this game. And are they going to get psyched up to go down to Miami and play the Dolphins? So a lot's going to be determined. But I think if you have both, I would feel more comfortable with the Broncos, especially because I think the Bills have a couple more natural spots left. But I will say this, the real big plus for keeping the Broncos is they do play on Christmas. And granted, right now they're scheduled to be an underdog. But I would guess that, there'll be very, very few entries that actually have the Broncos available come Christmas. And we don't know, what the situation is going to be like. Does Mahomes get hurt? Is Worthy and Rice, do they take some freak injuries? Like, there's definitely spots where you could really leverage the field by having the Broncos available because it's a holiday slate. But right now, sitting here today, if I know nothing else and everything's equal, I would definitely take the home team of the Broncos.
Yeah, good stuff. And let's not forget the Dolphins played the Bills pretty tough earlier this season up in Buffalo in that Thursday night game. I think they won by 10, but the game was a lot closer than the score indicated. Let's go ahead and bring in our next guest, David Williams, if David is ready.
What's up, guys?
What's happening, David? Great to have you back on the show.
Hey.
David, I want to say I love having you on the show because you are a great storyteller, and I love the way you give us insight into how you landed, where you landed with your picks, talking about your conversations with your partner. So I have a favor to ask. I think I usually ask you where you landed and then how you got there. Don't tell us right away where you landed. If you can kind of bring us through your thought process and then tell us at the end, I'd love that.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, this week, I'm sure you can tell, is not that hard of a week. There's pretty much 3 spots, as everybody we kind of knew coming into it.
Yep.
I'm super, shocked to see 65% on one team, but It does kind of make sense. So we didn't really it was very quiet in our group chat about what to do this week. It was kind of Rams, Chargers, Green Bay. We already used one Green Bay, decided, want to have some Green Bay later because they are kind of low owned. It would be a good spot this week, but it feels like all 3 are probably advancing. So if they're all 3 advancing, who would you rather have after the week was kind of where we thought. And it's like, I'd still rather just have Green Bay to play later as opposed to the other 2, weighing those 3 against each other. So then it came down to Rams, Chargers. Didn't really want to be all in. So we were like, let's just do a kind of a 2-1 split. Sucks to be on the top 2, but it's like, look, if they're all going to go through, it's nice to kind of diversify. It's about 1% that both lose. So you still kind of stay alive. You get to keep Green Bay. So there was really not much excitement like typically with this week, unfortunately for the storyteller fans. And we ended up, was like, okay, so how do we decide? And then turns out we used the Rams in week 6, which I didn't want to use. That was the week we actually went Pittsburgh, Rams, Green Bay for some weird reason, 1-1-1. I wanted triple Pittsburgh, and that was like the compromise. I got to throw one in. So now it's kind of like I told you so. Like, look, if we use triple Pittsburgh there, we'd be sitting sweet here with all Green Bay and all Rams available. Now we got one of each gone, and we're using 2 Rams now. So I'm not thrilled about how it's playing out. Like, I'm kind of disgusted by it, but at the same time, I am happy, looking forward to week 10. Like you said, we got Broncos and Buffalo, so it's a lot of people don't. Both those teams have 31% left, so it's going to be I think we'll see a lot of carnage next week, and I think there's some other spots coming up where it's going to be it's tough to navigate. So it's like, look, make it to those weeks is kind of the silver lining of being on the chalk this week. Make it to the tough weeks. If you've got some good spots where others don't, then perhaps that's where the herd gets cold and you get to make it through.
I think I just want to say, David, like your group conversation was exactly like mine. The same exact thing. We have 2 Rams, 1 Chargers. We had a choice between the pack. I think everybody's group was kind of like that. And I think the cold reality of it all is I think we all knew that we didn't want to be on the Rams because of ownership, but we all just were like, fuck it. You know, it's just like the future.
Except Mike, right?
I felt like we had the least amount of conversation that I've ever had. Sounds like you kind of did this too. It's just kind of like we know what we have to do. We know it's disgusting. We know it's going to look stupid when 65% are on there. But we don't have the balls that Mike does to just go ahead and fade them and be there. And that's why he's the champ. And we're just excited to be there week 9. You know.
My chat with my partner was very quiet too. But back to what I originally said, this play was made in week 6, you know, because we were on the Rams in week 6. Again, we had 1 Rams available. We held them back. We faded them completely because I want the Rams down the road when people do not have them anymore. And so out of the remaining picks that we had, you know, we took the pack right here, and we held 1 pack and went 1 Chargers so that we can have also 1 pack moving forward. But the decision was made week 6.
Let me ask you this, David. This is a question I've asked several people. If you could right now, if you could take your Rams, if you could take your 3 entries right now,
I already know, no shot.
You just ride it with the teams, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually had a kind of similar. I saw you posted that. And I was thinking the same. If you knew the Rams were going to go through, this is kind of what made me. If you knew the Rams was a guaranteed win, like let's say you 100%, would you still pick the Rams if you know that everyone's going to be there? And it's like looking at the other options. I was like, I think I probably still would. Like, I mean, it's like I wouldn't even move. Like I just, it's like it sucks because you know, like you said, it is what it is. I was even looking at like Chicago, like trying to like muster up the conversation to my boys, like, let's take Chicago. Cincinnati's ready to blow it. But like, I was like, there's just no way. There's no way I can have this conversation happen, have Chicago lose and be like, what the hell? We were just trying to be cute to be cute. Like, yeah, couldn't do it.
And I think it's also kind of just annoying that like the other big favorites are like so important for other parts of this tournament, like the Lions and the Ravens. I would say right now, if I could start a new entry right now and I knew that I had to, and I could draft the 2 teams that I don't want to have used already, like Baltimore, Detroit would be my first 2 choices. Like I want those 2 teams because Baltimore has such great spots plus the best holiday spot, and Detroit has 2 holiday spots that they're probably going to be favored. So it's like, you know, even if I wanted to pivot, it's like I can't pivot onto the Ravens or Lions because I'm really just destroying my entry. So just kind of sucks. Like you're just kind of like hamstrung. It's not like you had a choice between like the Falcons at 7 points or the Bengals at 7 points like last week that you could be like, you know, I'll just get cute here. Or like the Raiders when they played Tennessee and they were 4.5 or something. Like there was just no pivot point outside of. Yeah, I mean, I thought maybe the Cowboys possible, but like they play 2 holiday games and you never know. And so it was kind of like I was in the same boat as you, David, like trying to be too cute.
Week 5 is that week with the Rams and Arizona and Buffalo all died. So like the people, like for me exactly, I'm still alive because of my Detroit injuries, right? Like I lost on the rest of those. So now I don't even have Detroit because that's why I made it through week 5. So
Yeah,
it's also
right.
brutal there that, like, to have Detroit, how did someone have Detroit left and still make it through week 5? That's a tough one, right? They had to probably use their Colts, but then how did they make it through last week? So it's like Detroit it's unfortunate. Detroit, I wish I still had it, but I don't.
And did you guys see the Detroit entries go from 51% ownership last week down to 31% just because of all the entries that happened where they happened to land with Detroit?
Well, that makes sense,
Big
because
shift.
if you use Detroit, then you didn't use the Colts, and like exactly what David said, like the people who got through that week with the Colts, they lost that following week because they had to have the Bengals or Falcons because they had gotten through with the Colts the previous time, and that's why they had so much Detroit left.
Right.
Yeah,
it
and
makes
it's great.
perfect sense, but it's still something to keep an eye on. It's a big development.
Yeah, it's great to have the Ravens, but everybody has the Ravens. It's just one of those teams where they haven't really been deployed because everybody's been sitting around waiting for Lamar Jackson to get back. And
Well, they've
now,
also lost most of their games. So
yeah, and yes, exactly. And of course, now they'll probably be the chalk on Thanksgiving. So if you do have Eagles, maybe that's a good team to have.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys about Thanksgiving. I ask every week. We just saw the Ravens look, I guess, good on Thursday night with Lamar Jackson back. He certainly looked good, 4 touchdowns. How are you feeling specifically about that Ravens-Bengals matchup now? Start with you, David.
I feel great about it, man. I think I'm similar to the other David, or maybe you met the other David too. I'm really big on the Ravens. Like, they were my preseason Super Bowl pick. I don't. Obviously, things are looking dire. I like his bet at 25-1. Clearly, they're not, in a great position to do it. But I still think that's a great team when Lamar is playing well. I originally planned, and all the paths I've created with my guys, Baltimore and Philly, I just don't want to use them because I'd like to have both options on Thanksgiving, because those are the only two I really feel really good about. I mean, Kansas City at Dallas is good, but then you got Christmas to worry about. But Baltimore and Philly are kind of like a cut above the rest for Thanksgiving. So I want to make sure I have both those teams so I can see where the ownership is and kind of pivot on Thanksgiving. So I've been trying to plan on not using either of them because I feel great about both those spots right now.
Mike, if one of those teams goes down, Baltimore or Philly on Thanksgiving, which is it going to be?
Oh, man. Obviously, a lot depends on health, but I would say Baltimore has a chance to lose, although I have a lot of future plays, as David does, on Baltimore, both division and for playoffs. But their defense, there's something going on there. They are getting better, but I think Philadelphia is the better overall team. And Chicago's good, but I think anything can happen in a Baltimore game right now.
Gotcha. David, your Thanksgiving thoughts? Or David Baker, your Thanksgiving thoughts?
Well, I would say that I think it's great if you have both of them available, because the week before they both have spots. Or maybe it's Baltimore the week before and Philly like the week after. So you can kind of look at it like a week out and kind of better assess seeing how this pool is kind of working as one unit. I think we can really probably assess which way they're going to go on that 3 weeks. I think it's maybe 12, 13 and Thanksgiving, and then 15 or something like that, whatever it is. And you could kind of just zig like Mike likes to do, when they're zagging or whatever the term is. But if I had to say right now, I would say that I don't trust Philly as much as I trust Baltimore, which is kind of crazy to say because Philly is just a lot better. I also think that I think Chicago is just going to get better as the season goes on. So I think that there's a chance in 4 or 5 weeks that Ben Johnson has that team looking better. Flacco's old and brittle, and although I kind of trust Cincinnati today, I don't know like what's going to kind of happen down the path. I trust Caleb to actually get better and be more healthy than I do Flacco. So yeah, if I had to say right now, if I had to pick and I had both available, I would just put the Ravens on there. But the great thing is I can decide the week out because the Ravens play I think it's their softest spot of the entire season is the week before.
Yeah, for me, I worry about that Eagles locker room. I don't want to wake up Thanksgiving morning and see a tweet from AJ Brown or an Instagram post from AJ Brown about how he hates his quarterback or some passive aggressive comment. So a little worried about that. David Williams, if you had to single out one team that is the most valuable linchpin in Circa Survivor from here on out, who is that one team?
I mean, it's a team I don't have. It's probably Detroit, right? Like no one has Detroit. So if you have Detroit and there's so many good spots and they're so good, that's amazing. So it's got to be Detroit in my eyes.
Yep. Anybody
Yeah,
disagree
for
with
sure.
that?
I have one entry that has Detroit and Baltimore left, and then I have my other two entries don't have either Detroit or Baltimore left. So it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you know, I'd almost rather just trade my two entries for one. Like if I could choose which one's losing, you know, I feel like that one entry that has Detroit and Baltimore is so valuable, whereas the one that doesn't, you know, I held Kansas City back on that entry, but it's like, I don't know. I don't even really trust Kansas City to go on the road and beat Dallas. Obviously on Christmas, it's a nice thing, but now Christmas is kind of the crazy one because Washington kind of stinks now. Minnesota stinks. So like you can't trust if you don't have Detroit left. So you have Detroit, Minnesota. You don't want to play Minnesota because they stink. You don't have Detroit left. You don't trust Washington. Do we really trust Dallas on the road? No. A lot of people don't have Kansas City left and nobody's got Denver left. So it's like on Christmas, you're kind of screwed. Like, I mean, it's really tough spot if you don't have Detroit, Kansas City. Like you're kind of stuck between Washington or Dallas, which like right now I would say that's like a 2-point spread or something. You're kind of flipping coins. If you don't have Detroit or Kansas City, you're kind of screwed there on Christmas.
Yeah, we were looking ahead this week as well, and we just started chuckling because if you get to Christmas, the best win percentage is the Chiefs at 69%. And then you got Detroit at 65% and then Washington at 62%. So at the end of the day, if you get that far, you're just flipping coins.
If we get that far, we're firing some big 7-figure hedges is what we're doing.
What do you have left for Christmas?
Depends on what ticket gets there. We have different paths. We do have a Chiefs available. We also have a Lions, and we have Washington available on all three, actually.
What about you, David?
Yeah, I have everything but Detroit available. And I know Dallas because I used the only ones alive used Dallas in week 2, but I wouldn't play Dallas, I don't think, that week unless somehow the ownerships are just really crazy and you could kind of be on an island. So, I mean, I've got Kansas City, I got Washington, I have Minnesota, and don't have, I got Denver's. So I got them all except Dallas and Detroit. But not thrilled about any of it. Like I said, I think if we get there, that means you're 3 weeks out. Hopefully the field is really small and you can start doing some really fun big hedge bets. So like you kind of
it all depends if one of these 50%ers lose. Like we
or we get there with 300 people and then it's like, well, the equity's not even that high anyway. So
you can't really hedge when there's 300 people. Like, and it's kind of a weird situation. I think you just kind of almost got to ride it out and flip the coins.
Yeah. I think because people are losing confidence in Washington, I think it's the few people that have the Chiefs left are going to decide to pass on them on Thanksgiving. And I think it's going to create even more of a bottleneck for Thanksgiving on Philly and Baltimore. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Chiefs at Dallas is that attractive at Thanksgiving anyway when you weigh the other option, especially Christmas. So I think that was naturally going to happen anyways. I mean, I think Thanksgiving is going to be heavily concentrated in Philly and Baltimore, right? I mean, it kind of has to be.
Yeah.
I
Which, if you have conviction in Detroit or Green Bay, and you have them, if you can get there, not a bad spot to deploy them. I mean, especially if I'm a Mike Buckmiller type player where I want to be off the chalk, that's maybe where I might want to be on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm just going to be trying to find a way to make sure I save Kansas City, so I also have them for Christmas to have like. Assuming I had 3 entries still by then. Yeah.
The problem is if you have 3 entries left, David, we're not going to be under 300 because just most likely the way that you're playing and I'm playing and most of us in the pool are playing, it's going to be hard to get to sub 300 and you keep all your entries because most likely you're going to have at least one every week on the biggest win percentage.
Not next year, but this year for sure.
Yeah.
Guys, what are the chances that we get to Christmas and Dallas ends up being one of the more attractive teams. They make a trade at the trade deadline for a defensive player. Washington's always banged up. Jaden, the receivers, those guys are always banged up. 2 receivers are out, or Jaden's in and 1 receiver's out. Dallas is hot. All of a sudden, could Dallas come out of nowhere and be the team that everybody wants? I mean, they'll be high owned, so in that sense, maybe not. But just from a win percentage perspective, possible that Dallas ends up coming out of nowhere on Christmas?
It's definitely possible, and they have 80% availability, and they don't have like any good spots leading up to that. So, like, if that happens, it's going to be a spot where everybody left probably has Dallas available. Most. I don't, but yeah. That
week two miracle game with the Giants, we were all like, everybody, the people who played them, they were like, let's get Dallas out of the way. We're never going to want to use them again. And it's now, just having a team and that's kind of the value of these holiday games is like, if a team plays twice, it doesn't really matter if they're good, bad, or otherwise. Like, it's nice to have them in your pocket because you never know how the NFL breaks, and you might have a situation. Obviously, it didn't work out, but you might have a situation like that Niners-Rams game, where it's like the whole team gets injured. I mean, if Jaden and Terry are out and they're throwing away the season and they're just kind of like, with 3 weeks left, let's not get any of our guys hurt. Yeah, you might be looking at like a 6-point line or something with Dallas. No, we don't think that's probably going to happen, but it's definitely in the range of outcomes.
All right, we had a comment here from Eric. Dallas has a historically bad defense. They sure do. I mean, is Matt Eberflus going to lose his job as a defensive coordinator now? He said so. It would be a bit more than a move. You're probably right. It would probably take more than one guy. They might need to make a couple trades in order to improve that Dallas defense. But David, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. We're going to let you go here. Appreciate you. Hopefully we see you in the future. Good luck this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, good luck to all of us, I guess.
Get them all through, David.
Exactly. Let's go 3 for 3.
Good luck. Thanks for coming on,
everybody.
All right, we're going to go ahead and bring in James to talk about the Survivor Sweat marketplace. Always great to hear from James Sullivan. How you doing over there, James?
Good. How you doing, Tony?
Not too bad, man. I want to start off with this. Someone very close to me says they sold 25% of their entry for $8K on your marketplace, and I didn't see anything else going for close to that. So I'm like, what? You got to be kidding me.
He did. Yeah, it was the highest price per point paid this week was that entry, 25% for 8,000. It was the second busiest week in terms of sales volume in the history of Survivor Sweat, which anytime we see, mass eliminations, 50% of the field get eliminated. It happened last year, obviously happening this year. So yeah, anytime we see that, sales figures jump up. So the biggest week in the history was last year, week 3, when, the field was just decimated down to, whatever it was, 90% eliminated. But this was the second busiest week in the history of Survivor Sweat.
And we got a question here from Crutches. Crutches says, I'm curious to hear from James if you feel like next week is the week that prices flip. And if people don't know what we mean when we're talking about that, right now it's very much a seller's market. We talk about when is that point where it's going to pivot and start to be a buyer's market. Do you think next week could be that week, James, or is it still a little early?
That's a great question, because I was thinking about it going into, thinking about the show tonight. I was like, man, next week is going to be real interesting to see how the marketplace plays out, because week 10 is such a tough week. To see if there's more sellers in the market that are, just looking to cash out at that point. They made it to week 10, and if obviously if the supply outpaces the demand, the prices are going to come down. So it's going to be real interesting to see. I did run some numbers leading up to this week, and I always said, like, obviously early in the season the demand is so high, people want to get back in, and so in weeks like 4 and 5, the price multiple was a little bit over three times the implied equity value. So it was around 3.2 for those weeks. And then it started dipping down in weeks 6 and 7. It was around 2.5 times. And then last week it was around 2 times. And this week for the first time, it dipped below 2. So it was around 1.9, almost twice the implied equity value is what the average price per point sold at. So, it's going to be really interesting if that gets closer to 1. I definitely think it's going to answer his question directly. Yeah, I do think it's going to come down closer to where they're probably selling closer to the actual EV. I don't think it's going to flip to where they're selling under, but I think it's going to sell closer to the EV.
All right, James, I agree with you that next week is going to be fascinating with the marketplace. I think it's going to be extra fascinating because we got that Thursday game right in the middle of the week. So talk to me about what the marketplace looks like when we've got a big Thursday game, and maybe compare it to when the Rams went out. Like, if the Broncos were to lose on Thursday, how do people even assess what the correct price is on Friday? Because we don't know how many people were just eliminated on the Broncos.
It gets real tricky after a Thursday night upset because there's several things that have to happen. First of all, obviously we have to verify the entry. That's to who were they on the team or were they not?
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you got to verify that information first of all. And then, yeah, I mean, you're trying to guess. I mean, you could look obviously at other public sources as to what the pick rate was on that team and then what the entry would be worth and things like that. But no one knows the information until Saturday. We obviously don't even know it either. So yeah, I mean, people are always trying to guess. I mean, you do see anytime there's an upset. I mean, just generally speaking, anytime there's an upset, you see way more sales. People are jumping in the market. They could have been people that are eliminated that want to get back in, or people that are just trying to capitalize on the opportunity that more people are out.
Let me ask you one question, James. Last week we discussed that there was somebody who had a 5-pack that they were going to sell. Did that end up get listed? And did they sell pick control? Did they reach their 6-figure they had hoped for, or what happened with that situation?
Yeah, good question. So he got 4 through. He had 4 on the Colts. He got 4 through. So he did have a 4-pack listed in the marketplace for, I think it was like 125,000. So 2 things. One, it did not sell. However, he did end up doing a deal where he ended up swapping shares of his entry with another owner. So sometimes when people list, it's also just, kind of increasing awareness for, someone did reach out to him and he did end up brokering a deal where he swapped shares. So yeah,
do you
get a deal done. It wasn't the sale, but he did get a deal done.
Do you broker that with swaps through Survivor Sweat, or is that just on them to do individually?
Absolutely. We broker swaps. We do. Typically swaps happen as the season gets later, where people are swapping different shares of their entry. We broker those. Obviously, we handle the contracts for that. I mean, anytime you're doing anything with your entry, whether it's a sale or a swap or anything, you want to make sure you have a contract in place between the buyer and seller. So we handle, all of that, even when it gets down to, where it's, sub 100, sub, 20, where people are talking about, you get down into the single digits. People are talking about chops. We've handled the chop the last couple of years as well. So yeah, anything related to your entry, we can facilitate both brokering and the contract for it.
So if someone wanted to swap, is there a spot on the Survivor Sweat website for that? Or do they email someone or text someone or call someone? How do I go about that? I want to swap right now. What do I do?
Yeah, typically, so to answer your question, no, you can't do it on the website. So there's not a spot where you list specifically, I want to swap. What happens is people reach out to us. So we know so many, buyers and sellers in the marketplace. So people will reach out to me. You can email me directly and just say, hey, I'm interested in swapping. And then sometimes we know people that are interested and we'll then facilitate it from there. So it's kind of an off market type deal that we do for swaps. But that's typically how it gets done.
And if you're just listening and not watching this show, folks, James's email address is underneath his name on the screen. It's james@survivorsweat.com. And that's the appropriate email address, James, that you'd like people to reach out if they want to swap.
Yeah, for sure. Email me anytime, whether you want to swap or even if you have questions about the marketplace. There's people that, for the first time, they haven't listed, they have questions about, just the process. You can reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to jump on call as well and walk you through the process on, how you go about listing and selling shares of your entry.
Awesome.
So let me ask you this. Do you have an option within the website, or if not, this would be an idea for future, where I can say, like, we just had a nice, interesting conversation, the most valuable teams moving forward, maybe the Lions, the Ravens, the Broncos, because they have the Christmas game, plus they have an easier spot this coming week. Can I just put in there all entries that have Broncos, Ravens and Lions available, and it will spit out? Or is that something that you could do, or do you have to go through each entry on its own? Or if not, that could be something that maybe we could look at.
Correct. Yeah. And we've had players reach out to us, be like, hey, I'm looking for an entry that has this. So it's a feature we're building out. It will be built out probably for next season, where you can sort by the team that you're looking for. Right now, it doesn't have the ability to do that. So it is a manual process where you have to look at, the inventory in the marketplace. You can sort by, different things. You can sort by price point, things like that. So you can bring up, if you sort high to low, you're bringing up all the ones that are, selling pick control. And then from there, you can kind of sort through those. So you don't have to go through the entire thing. But yeah, it is a feature that we have on our dev plan for next year. Customers have asked for it.
James, you said people are reaching out and saying, hey, I'm looking for an entry that has this. What's one of the more popular requests? Is it a lot of people looking for Lions? Are they looking for Ravens? Or it's just a path that's different from theirs and not one particular team, or what?
Yeah, it's not anything in particular right now because, like you said, everyone's got such different paths. So I mean, there's each one's different. I mean, there was someone who was looking for they want the Bills for next week and things like that. So a lot of people that reached out this week were obviously already planning on week 10 and who they're taking, but everyone's path is different, so it varies.
Gotcha. Good stuff. James, thanks so much for coming on, brother. We appreciate you. Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
No, I was just happy to see the 0 no picks for the first time.
Let's go.
Week 9. I mean, as a proxy, we're super excited to see that. So yeah, other than that, good luck, guys.
All right. Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much, James.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
All right.
I'm interested in seeing, and of course, we have no skin in the game at this time in Grandissimo, but next week, week 10, Broncos, Bills, and Seahawks. Anything below there, like,
that tear drops off, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so there's limited availability of those teams because they've been taken by a lot of people in Grandissimo. So, the odds on all 3 of those getting through next week, I think you're going to see some major blood spillage next week in Grandissimo. So, if those individuals want to get in and swap and do those things, you might want to reach out to Survivor Sweat, maybe brokerage a deal or something like that.
Yeah, and how about the people on the Packers and Chargers tomorrow that are just going to be rooting so hard against the Rams in Grandissimo? That's a big swing of money right there. Good stuff, Nick. Thanks for pulling up that.
Are we ready for Paulie Howard to come in on the show?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get the man in.
Paulie Howard coming on the show in the middle of Game 7 of the World Series. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time. Forgive us all, by the way, if any of us happen to be distracted looking up at a television because there is something big going on right here. But, Paulie, thanks so much for coming on the show. What was your reaction when you saw a couple minutes ago 64% of the field is going to be on the Rams in Circa Survivor?
Yeah, 96% on 3 teams. Unprecedented. Unbelievable, but I know where they're coming from as well. Yeah. Shuck makes his first start. You got 2 huge favorites here. Carolina's banged up on the O-line. Don't really love the spot for the Packers with the Eagles on deck on Monday night. They play with their food a lot, but still survive in advance. But the public, I think everyone knows what they're doing here because they're looking how the public continues to eat. Favorites are on a 12-2 ATS run, best since 1985. Going back the last 14 weeks, favorites of 8 points or higher are 26-1 straight up, and favorites of 6 or more are 68-10 straight up. So it's take one of these 3 teams and move on. Although I was surprised with all the Charger love. I know Tennessee's the worst team in the league, but man, you're still on the road, and the Chargers have they lost to the Giants on the road. They can put up a stinker from time to time, but. It's crazy. Well, I don't think we'll ever see this again. 65% on one team and 96% on 3 teams. And I echo James' sentiments. Hallelujah. No, everyone got their pick in as well, which was a miracle in of itself right there.
Absolutely. Do you think any of these big favorites are going to go down tomorrow, or is this just going to be another chalky week, Paulie?
Well, if I had to pick one, I'd say the Chargers, but that's probably getting aggressive as Tennessee's 0-11 ATS, last 11 at home. They're on a 4-24 ATS run. I mean, it's impossible what they've done. All the sacks and the penalties, and they didn't get a bump from McCoy and can't stop anything. They don't have Ridley. They don't have Simmons. So it's a nightmare for that organization. We're good. We're good, Mike Vrabel. We want to go in a different direction. We're tired of making the playoffs every year. So got to get you out of there. But it's a weird week. Can we go back to what Mike said? Because week 10 is nuts. I agree with him. He said Bills, Broncos. Who was the other team?
Seattle was his third favorite.
Seattle, and they're at home versus the Cardinals. It isn't warm and fuzzy. I think they finally creeped to like a 72% win rate, but prior to last week or the week prior, it was about 68%.
Yeah. So I got to look at that and see how many people have the Bills remaining on both contests. You're right, but it's going to get wild in Grandissimo with who's left and who you're going to use there. If you're going to step out, I can't. Do we know? I can't imagine many people have Denver or the Bills available.
I would guess not. I would guess not very many have the Broncos for sure, because that week one, they were 50% owned, and then
So, yeah, I have it right in front of me. 4 have Denver available.
Okay.
And then 7 have Seattle available. And the Bills, let me see here. They are 5. 5.
That man. Okay.
That's crazy. It's crazy that Seattle's third, because I wouldn't think Seattle at home versus the Cardinals, who they kind of play them tough. I wouldn't think that would be third. I would think like, I don't know. I was looking at either the Chargers or the Bears. I think the Bears play the Giants and maybe even at home, and the Chargers are at home versus the Steelers. I don't know. I don't really feel good about the Seahawks, but it's crazy how the NFL season goes, because I remember week 3, I was like, I'm not comfortable with the Seattle, with the ownership, but I just want to get Seattle out of the way. I don't want Seattle left. And then I used them versus the Saints. And it's like now Seattle's kind of a valuable team. So you never really know exactly how things go. And that's kind of a testament to like what Mike, how he plays. It's like, well, I'm just not going to take Seattle as a 40%, and we'll just kind of see how the season plays out. And now if you're sitting with a Seattle ticket, there's not a whole lot of people who have them left, and that's kind of a nice thing to have.
Yeah, and I disagree a little bit, David. I like that Seattle Cardinals matchup. I think the NFC West is like rock, paper, scissors. Like the 49ers always play the Rams tough. Seattle always plays the Cardinals tough. And I was on Seattle for the game prior this year in Circa Survivor, and it was a 3-point game. Seattle won by 3, but I felt like there was a lot of weird shit in that game, and Seattle was just a much better team that day. And I remember during the game saying, you know what, if I have Seattle left, I can't wait to deploy them in week 10. Lo and behold, I don't have any Seattles left, so I can't do it. But I actually do like the matchup and wish I had Seattle left. Paulie, back to you, my friend. Talk to me about that decision that a lot of people are going to have next week. Denver on Thursday on a short week without Patrick Surtain against the Raiders, or the Bills against this Dolphins team that maybe they looked slightly better last week, even though they got blown out, but did play Buffalo tough earlier this year. If you had both, would you go Denver or would you go Buffalo?
Boy, that's tough.
Yeah.
I know you got the rules and it's a rivalry game, but you can't use a road team. I guess say the same thing about the Bills. The Bills are a bit off a war against Kansas City. God, Miami's bad. I mean, you fire the GM, the horrible play calling, the fade on 4th and 2. They can't stop the run. Cook should run for 200 yards in that game. But then again, I watched the Raiders, and I mean, they couldn't put away Tennessee. Cam Ward fumbled inside his own 5. The horrible performance against the Chiefs. I can't believe Jacksonville's only 2.5 tomorrow. But are we going to get bad Bo or good Bo? That's the other thing. I mean, Denver looks great one week, and the next week they're trying to give the game away to the Jets or the Titans. So they play down to the level of competition. Also some people like to use Thursday night games as well. I out of those choices, I would take the Bills, just because it just seems that, especially if they're coming off a loss, that it's a mess in Miami. I can't believe McDaniel's going to survive at least the season. They can't stop the run. The fluke win against Atlanta, which I still can't believe. And I think Buffalo always plays well in Miami, and Buffalo should win that game by double digits.
I think I agree with you. One thing to keep an eye on, guys, since we got a game on Thursday, let's see if there's any injuries this week for the Raiders or the Broncos. Like if there's a concussion in those games, that guy's not clearing protocol probably by Thursday, right? So that could completely change things. A couple defensive backs get concussions. All of a sudden we're feeling different about this Buffalo versus Denver decision. Paulie, if you had to choose a team besides Green Bay, besides the Rams, and besides the Chargers to be on this week, because it's not many people, but there's a very small number of people that chose to make that decision, and they're rooting for carnage.
Yeah.
Where might you land if you had to be on an island this week?
Let's see, 12 teams used. Surprised by that again. I guess probably Detroit, because Minnesota's in disarray. All the injuries, all the Flores, they can't stop anything. Detroit has incredible numbers. Goff's 8-0 ATS against the Vikings as a Lion. They're on 11-2 ATS run off the bye. The last 2 games off the bye, they've scored 47 and 41 points. He's always played well against the Flores defense. McCarthy back, which not going to be a good thing. I think they got it right with Detroit, and plus Morton, the OC, talking about he's felt he's let Williams down. He's got to get him involved and get him touches early as well. So it feels like a Detroit blowout's coming on Sunday. That's the easy way out, but that's how I would look at it. And not that people have these guys available anyways. I know it's a road team. I can't see Pittsburgh stopping the Colts. I hated the comments from I appreciate the honesty, but the comments from Hayward after the game when they lost to the Packers, we don't have a lot of fight in us right now. I mean, that's brutal. And they just can't stop anything. And the last thing you want to see is Indy now after what Love did, completing 20 straight passes, and also what Kraft did. So hello tight end, hello Warren in that game Sunday.
Let me ask you a question, Paulie. We had Mitch on last week, and he had 2 on the Falcons. And how's he holding up now after that performance? He didn't even get his money's worth. He didn't even get a sweat. It was just straight blowout. And we're big fans of you and Mitch here, so condolences to him. But how's he holding up after that performance?
Well, I think that one was easier to take as opposed to being on the Bengals. I mean, I'd rather go out right away where I don't have a chance, and sometimes they just get weird results and a total fluke. Raiders, Patriots week 1, total fluke. I'd like to see that game tomorrow, replay that. But it's like they were never in the game, and they had 45 yards rushing, and the defense came out with a bad performance, and Tua was going up and down the field. Raheem Morris didn't have him ready to play. But I'd rather go out like that than what the Bengals did. To be up 15 in the fourth quarter at home, and you have the owner saying, be nice if Fields could complete a pass, and for only the second time in 25 years they have 500 yards of offense, and you score 38 points at home and you lose. That's brutal to me.
Paul, is there a team in the NFL that you think a lot of people are going to trust at some point in Circa Survivor that you don't, that you're like, you know what, I think this team is not as good as people think. They're a little overrated. And if you're trusting them later in Circa Survivor, you might get yourself into a little bit of trouble.
Probably Black Friday. I wouldn't be surprised if they're healthy. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles lose to the Bears.
Paulie, if you're right, we were just talking a little while ago about how there's probably going to be a bit of a bottleneck on the Eagles. If you're right, it could be a bloody week 13A, if you want to call it that. Wow.
Yeah. I want to answer that question, and I'm going to say that it's a team that we're all saving, and they've got multiple great spots coming up. But just watch, the Bucs are going to lose one of these games to the Panthers or the Saints, and we all have the Bucs left, and we're all trying to choose which of these 2 bad teams that we're going to deploy them against. There's gonna be one stinker from them, and we're all gonna be like, oh my God, can you believe that Carolina went to Tampa Bay and beat them as 9-point dogs or something like that? That's just kind of I think the team, because they have so many good spots. It's like it's easy to say like a team like Denver or Buffalo or something like that you don't fully believe in, but it doesn't really matter when they lose because nobody's got them left. They're never going to have a huge concentration of the pool. It's the team that could take out a big percentage of the pool, I think, is the Bucs at some point down the line.
Isn't that Dave Canales' old team?
Yeah. So maybe it's the Panthers beat them.
Maybe. That the other game you bring up though, David, I think there's going to be a lot of people on that Saints game. I think the majority of people, I see Mike grinning over there. He's like, yeah, go ahead and stack up on the Bucs because I won't be on them. He's grinning over there. I think that's going to be another very high owned one. I don't know about 60%.
I just hope I'm around long enough to see one of these things go down. I mean, we did see the Cardinals. We did get that one. But, man, last week, to Paulie's point, we pivoted off the Falcons and we got 36% of our remaining entries in on the Bengals. We felt so good going into the fourth quarter. Their offense couldn't get stopped. And we just felt like we just were in such a great spot. And then we hit the windshield. It was just bad. Just bad.
That 2-point conversion that I had to overrule. And the irony here, we're all rightfully so killing Aaron Glenn as being just a complete embarrassment. And then he actually makes a great call to
Couldn't
go for
believe
two
it.
there.
Couldn't believe
His one good decision all year long. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Watching the game, it was Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta. And they're like, what are you doing? Why are you going for two? What a questionable decision. Because remember, it was ruled incomplete.
Yeah,
and then once they changed it, it goes, oh, okay. Nice move by Glenn. All right, now you're only down 6. Quickly, before I get out of here, top of the 8th, by the way, Dodgers down 2. Circa Millions also. The consensus is hitting 35%. And every week they pick the Chargers. Chargers are on that damn list every single week. They used them again. Dallas, Colts, Niners, and Detroit as well. So you don't want to be on that list if you're lined up with those same teams. Stunning, 35% ATS with the consensus.
No kidding. Paulie, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for not calling in sick, even though it's Game 7 of the World Series here. We appreciate you, brother.
Take care. Good luck.
Take care, man.
Everybody.
Thanks, Paulie.
Good stuff. All right, let's go ahead and bring in Brett Ritchie if he's available.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks
What's
for having
happening,
me on.
Brett? Thanks for coming on, man. First time on the show. Before I
Yes.
ask you your first question, Brett, I want to point out your Twitter handle because you do some great Survivor content over there. It's at Brett Ritchie, 2 T's in Brett, and Ritchie is EY for those who are listening. Brett, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Tony. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
I love it, man. Oh, man, Brett, the question I've been asking everybody tonight, what was your reaction when you saw that extremely high number on the Packers? Were you surprised at all? Excuse me, on the Rams.
I knew you meant no. I wasn't terribly surprised. 60 was kind of my northbound in play, but I knew the Rams would be chalk, at least 50, and I faded them, so I was happy. Not Rams was the play from where I stand. So I went all. I have 3 entries left. I went all in on Chargers. I actually would have liked to mix in Green Bay at this percent, but as long as I'm not on the Rams here, I'm happy.
How many Rams entries did you have available?
All 3.
So you had all 3 available: Rams, Chargers, and Packers.
Yeah, and I went all Chargers.
Wow, that's going to be a nice, if you can get through with the Chargers, regardless of what happens with those other 2 games, your entries are going to be worth a lot to have 2 teams that are favored to win a majority of their games in your hip pocket.
And I like the little availability. Yeah, the availability played a large role in that. Last week, I was all 3 on Philly for a similar reason. Philly had this wide availability, 90% or whatever, and they only had 2 spots to use them about, similar to the Chargers, where they have next week home against Pittsburgh maybe, and then that week that everyone wants to save them for against the Raiders. So I'm not a huge fan of these 50% spots. So even though it looks good from weeks out, I try to avoid them ahead of time. I don't mind burning them ahead of time, and I try to make sure I have other options when it comes down to it. But it's easier said than done. I burned my Denver 2 weeks ago in that Giants game, so I'm lucky to still be in this thing.
Since this is your first time on the show, Brett, and people might not be familiar with your Survivor philosophy, can you just kind of break down that for us? We talk about the ball knowledge people. We talk about the people that are sort of EV hunters. What's your general philosophy about how you attack this thing?
I would say aggressive contrarian. Like, I try to avoid the big chalk spots, but within, like, I was on Houston this year when they were 30%. I was on Raiders, home against Titans. Like, I'm not a super EV hunter. I don't mind taking the 0.9 EVs or whatever when it's setting up a better entry, but I don't like doing the 0.9 50%, even though it's just, I don't like those big cluster spots. I'm a line is the line believer. Like, whatever the market has, the prices for this week is very accurate in my belief. Like, Chargers win this game 80% of the time, or whatever it translates to. But looking down the road, it's not the same thing, because there's always injuries. Team strengths are going to change. You can't just say, oh, like the Survivor Atlas or whatever, the Survivor Sweat map has this in week 15, so I'll just save that team because they're going to be -8. Like, who knows? So you need to be flexible. You need to just realize the scenarios are going to change the farther down the road you go. So, like, there's the lines out for next week already, so you have a pretty good gauge. But like last week, Patriots were only -2.5 against Atlanta in the look-ahead lines on DraftKings, which is crazy to me. And now they're -5.5 after we saw Cousins and whatever. New England looked good, Atlanta looked bad, but that's a big jump. So that's only 1 week out. If you're going 5-6 weeks out, it can change pretty drastically.
Yeah, and I keep bringing up on every show I do, the trade deadline can change things as well. All of a sudden, we get some of these bad teams getting even worse, some of these good teams getting a little bit better. We saw the Eagles make a trade today for a cornerback. I don't know how much that's going to help them, but a couple big trades for like some pass rushers. We heard about Trey Hendrickson maybe being on the block. Something like that can shake up Circa Survivor in a hurry. Brett, we've talked, I don't know if you've listened to the show before you jumped on, but we talked so much about week 10 because that Thursday night game, Vegas, Denver is going to happen before we have our next show. So I've got to pick your brain a little bit on that one. Do you have Denver and or Buffalo available on your remaining entries? And where's your head at with next week?
I have all 3 Buffalo. I used all 3 of my Denver. I've been just all in on 3 for a while now. Next week, I will not be all in. I can if I advance. Actually, no matter what, I won't be all in because I'll either be out of the contest or I will start splitting. Whether I stay splitting, I will next week because I burned my Denver in that Giants miracle comeback game. And I did that because their short-term EV there was really good. And I know they're good because they're bottlenecked off here, but it's a spot I don't mind fading because there's enough other situations where, especially if I have multiple entries, which is part of the all-in strategy, is getting to split next week, I think is advantageous. Like I don't have to go either just on Buffalo or like, okay, I'm now betting on the Panthers. But if one of 3 is Panthers, another one's Giants or Bears home against Giants or Seattle, I have some other options here. Chargers was another team I looked at keeping for that home against Pittsburgh spot. And I thought about doing 2 Chargers, 1 Green Bay for that. And honestly, looking at where Green Bay came in, I think I would have rather done that. But, it's a game of imperfect information. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, one of my remaining entries doesn't have Buffalo or Denver available, and the Chargers are a team I'm looking pretty hard at. Go ahead, David Baker.
I was just going to say, Brett, tell us, for the people who don't know you and what you've been doing or don't follow you on X. I've been watching some of your videos that you've been doing lately, and it seems like you're trying to do some Survivor space content, and I found your stuff to be very interesting and educational. Can you just give us a little bit about what you're doing on the platform and what you're kind of how that's going for you?
Sure. So I played Survivor maybe for 5 years, but I never took it that seriously till last year. I put 10 in Circa, and I had like 2 in the final 200. It was a year where the contrarian plays got rewarded pretty heavily from early on. And so it was fun going that far. And then I kind of forgot about it, that like I really got into it. And I ended up, we have a couple of friends. I'm a proxy for one of them now. So we put 20 in this year. So doubled it up. But I was still like, whatever. It's just going to be like a little hobby. And then after the first week, I was like, man, I'm back into this. So week 2, I was like, okay, I enjoy Survivor quite a bit. It takes up a fair amount of my time. The odds of me making money in this contest, no matter how good you play, is very remote. Like you're looking at 1 in 100 or something, like 2 in 100. So how can I just benefit from the fact that I find this interesting? I've gambled on the NFL every single way you can. To me, Survivor is the most fun, like by a significant margin, way to gamble on the NFL. So it's like, okay, I'm going to start doing content because I was thinking about getting into content in general, just putting myself more out there. I just, streaming, and it's a market I know quite well. I feel I've done a lot of research into the sort of theory into Survivor. It's this Wild West sort of early stage market where there's no like established correct, here's exactly what you need to be doing, or that guy's terrible. And it's like we're all kind of flying by the seat of our pants to some extent. And it's just fun to be in there doing it. So it's more just like personal growth, just to be in there doing it and then just see where it goes. But one of the things I've been doing is looking at each team in each week, kind of the overall win probability of all teams in a given week, and then splitting that up by team. So like something like the holiday slates, looking at that metric we're calling it win shares, but that lets you look at like how much of a given week a team captures, because all -7s aren't the same. You could be -7 on a week with 3 double-digit favorites, or you're the King Kong -7 where the next team's -5. It makes a difference. So that helps. I'm just trying to look at things in a way other than just like, okay, what's the future spread supposed to be, or like that spot looks good. Like week 15 this week is a good week. There's a million teams that look like big favorites there. So those big favorites to me are not quite as valuable as someone like obviously we're going to see next week with Denver.
I want to bring up a week we haven't talked about yet, guys. We spent a ton of time talking about week 10. David Baker brought up, potentially using the Ravens in week 12 maybe. So we talked a little bit about that week. We talked about Thanksgiving. How about week 11? You got the Patriots against the Jets, which I think is a lot of people are going to say that's the most comfortable spot. Houston at Tennessee. Do we trust this Houston team? And a lot of people are probably going to be on them that week. And then Green Bay at the Giants. Let's see what this Giants team looks like without Scatterboo. What
They're
are your guys'
scary,
thoughts?
man. As a Denver all-in guy, the Giants scare. I went all in on Philly though the next week, so they didn't scare me that much.
I feel like week 11 is the week nobody's talking about. That could be Carnegie. So, Brett, what are you thinking about that week, man?
So I have a loose theory that I don't look that far out at the Tennessee matchups, because to me, if I had to bet one player in the league to improve from now to the end of the season, it would be Cam Ward. I'm not like a draft guy. I don't know. I know he was the number 1 overall pick. He's been bad so far. Tennessee's been bad so far. How much worse can they get? Like, they're pretty close to their floor versus, okay, this guy was number 1 overall for some reason. Maybe something starts clicking. If he improves, nothing is going to improve their team strength more than him taking some sort of leap. And so it's not that that's going to be a bad spot, but especially these road matchups at Tennessee, I'm not like, I file that kind of similar to the week 17, 18. Like, those are nice to haves, but I'm not going to force myself into even like KC at week 16 at Tennessee. I think right now it looks like the number 1 favorite spot there. But I mean, KC has a million spots too. So I'm not like, I need to use KC in that week. I don't know. Like, I have no idea. I don't even watch college. I just know that when you're the number 1 pick, it's usually for some reason. We haven't seen much reason yet. And so I think that there's probably more room to the upside there than most other players. So
yeah, good point. New head coach as well. That can always help with a transition like that too, with a flip. Mike, your thoughts on week 11?
Yeah, I mean, 51% of the pool still has the Patriots left. So if those people are still there, they will definitely be the chalk. That'll be a good week. If Brett has his Packers in his back pocket, he might be able to deploy them there if he wants to fade the Titans. There's a few other spots. It's also a week that you might decide who you're going to play for Thanksgiving, because you could ride the Ravens there if you have both the option of the Ravens and the Eagles. So you might make a stand with one of those teams there and say, hey, I'm happy riding with the Ravens, because most people do have the Ravens. So if you want to be contrarian on Thanksgiving, you could say, hey, I'm going to just make my stand with the Eagles. I'm going to get through with the Ravens here. I'm going to stay off the Patriots. You can play it different ways. It just depends on what your pick selection is at the time and where the public's going to be and what the ownership percentages are.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
for what it's
one
worth,
thing
that'll be the 3rd straight road game for Baltimore against Cleveland in that spot, for what it's worth. Go ahead, David.
Well, Brett said a few weeks ago that the Patriots versus Tennessee was one of the worst plays of the entire Survivor year. And I agreed with him because of, one, this spot and also their other spots. And I had said, I remember a few weeks ago, early on, I said that I thought that the Patriots were more valuable than the Bills. And I kind of got laughed at on the show that that how could the Patriots be more valuable than the Bills? And it's all coming up, to a head in these few weeks that are coming up. To have the Patriots available, they get back-to-back games versus the Jets and the Giants. Not to mention that they also have the Dolphins in the future. So having that Patriots, that week 11 is a very interesting spot, and it kind of we'll have to see what happens week 10. Let's just assume everybody gets through this week. But week 10, what percentage of the people that lose had the Patriots available? And do we get to a point where it's 30% have the Patriots available? Or do most of the people who had the Patriots available make it through, and maybe the teams that already burned the Patriots lose, and then we're looking at a 60, 70%? You might want to use them versus the Jets, or you might want to just be like, okay, I know that they're going to be one of these 40, 50% own spots. Let me go ahead and save them, because they still do have multiple other spots. I think at this point we can just assess that the Patriots are probably a pretty good team at this point.
Yeah.
For sure. And to your point, David, they finished the season with the Jets and Dolphins. Imagine a low-owned Patriots team in your pocket and having the Jets and the Dolphins week 17 and 18, and they're in the AFC East with the Bills, so they probably are going to be competing and not resting their guys. We don't know that for sure, but chances are they probably will be. That's a team that I know you got to get there first. I would love to have the Patriots.
You have all your Patriots left, Brett?
Yeah, I have all my Patriots. I used Denver that week when the Patriots were the big chalk. So I took a risk, obviously, because now I'm thin for this week. I was really between Denver and Green Bay in that 1 week. And again, I could have split it. I've been kind of adverse to splitting recently, but I'm not, like, from a theory standpoint, I'm not. And so next week, if I do advance, I can almost promise you I will not be all in. It's a real good week to split. As someone that does not have Denver, I think it'd be fine to just move it in on Denver if I had them.
Brett, are you making decisions by yourself, or do you kind of have a team of folks that you're sort of collaborating with to make up your mind?
Just me. 2 years ago we did it, and there were too many cooks in the kitchen, and like one guy had 10%, and he's like, "We got to have a Bills, just cuz," and I'm like, I just no, you're out. Like this is not how I'm operating. Like, I'm not just whims and theory, no, like where's the math, where's the logic, and not just like, well, just in case we should put one on Bills. I don't do that. No. So I'm a little rule with iron fists, but it's cool. I got some friends involved, and I'm a proxy for my friend. And next year I'm going to probably scale it out even more. You can do as many entries as you want. And I didn't realize how much I was going to get into it, but it's super fun.
Yeah.
And I like the content side of it too. It's fun creating content for this contest, because as you're aware, there's not much out there. And so it's kind of blazing new trails in this content landscape, and the people tend to appreciate it. The feedback I get, and I'm sure what you guys get, is overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, I will say one thing that's great about this industry versus some of the other industries that you and I are in, where we do similar stuff. You and I do, Brett. Like the industries we're in, is that this community is pretty supportive of each other, even though we're like all in the contest together, and we're all just obviously your demise helps me, and vice versa. My demise helps you. We're still like, everybody's kind of supportive of each other, and it's like even if you take a bad beat, it's not like in poker where, if you take a bad beat and you start telling me like I'm just like tuning you out. It's like, the people in this community, like, they want to hear about it. Like, even though we've all seen it and we all watched DeMarcado like drop the ball, like we all have suffered the same beat, or we all have benefited from the same beat or whatever. So it's kind of a cool community in that regard.
I was like even with the field on that game. So I was cheering for, I know you were heavy on Arizona. I was cheering for Arizona just because I feel like my entry would be higher value than average, but it kind of didn't matter. But it was, then I got clipped on the Bills later that night. So I was like early victory lapping, fading Rams. And this game, you never know, man. Honestly, a lot of the best picks have been getting clipped lately. Steelers on Thursday night, Eagles on Thursday night, like 2%. Like, those were great plays that, it's a game of the 55-45s over and over, and that's what makes it fun.
Brett, it sounds like you've been doing the Survivor thing for a while. You said about 5 years. You had 10 entries last year. Do you have a particularly bad beat that sticks with you, that either because you got so far and you were almost there to the end, or it was a DeMarcado type situation? Do you have something like that to share?
So I had 2 in the last 200 last year or so. And whenever it was after a ton of bloodbath chaos. And I took Ravens at Cleveland. And I forget who. I think it was Zay Flowers, like an easy first down catch at the end, and like Stone hit. It was one of these fluke games where like 3 things went wrong at the end, and then they lose to Cleveland, and the equity was like close to 6 figures per entry at that point. It was, I think it was 60, 70K.
So you had both entries on the same team, you're saying?
No, I split. I was splitting once the value was that high. The other one I forget. It was, I think that was even the first one. That one really stung. And then the other one I don't even remember. I think it might have been Tampa. But it was something, when the -7s lose, sometimes it's Atlanta and it's just, let's just lose 30-0. Often it's a series of unfortunate events that it's just how football. I mean, these 90% can lose too. You know, they haven't recently, but they can.
Indeed. Well, speaking of that, we got some 90% happening tomorrow. We hope we've set everybody up nicely, got all the information they can to enjoy these games tomorrow. Don't forget to change your clocks tomorrow, my friends. Enjoy the fun slate of football. Brett, thanks so much for coming on the show. You were an awesome guest. We'd love to have you back on again.
Yep,
check out his content at Brett Ritchie, 2 T's in Brett, Ritchie, Richey. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.